Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Over Bar the Cricket, where we have plenty to discuss. The Aussies in India and in New Zealand playing very nice cricket. What is going to happen to the top three for Australia? More players putting their hand up. Ollie Pope suddenly under pressure, not the vice-captain of England anymore. Is he going to hang on to his spot? And, of course, the money shot today are these two bananas picking their top four of all time, of their time, of the Australian team. I am looking forward to that because I'm sensing controversy everywhere as I have a look at a couple of real dirty beards, real dirty growths. Haydos, you're in your beautiful holiday island, so I can understand what you're doing. You're in the sun.
Yeah.
I look across at Blewy, and that just doesn't look good to me at all. What is happening here?
The point is, though, JB, that this is just an overnight growth. Blewy has taken a conscious decision. As you can see, this is just creeping north. Actually, it's more going south.
South.
A significant south.
Actually, Haydos trimmed that chest hair about 3 days ago as well. So, as you can see, he's got decent regrowth. But, Haydos, I saw a photo of you about 2 days ago with a couple of decent-sized snapper and the sort of full beard. So I was channeling you. I wanted to get into a bit of Stradbroke sort of thing.
Yeah, don't do that, Blue. You're way too handsome to do that. But I mean, the bloke that's sitting in the centre of the screen is only considering one thing, though, and that's just how large his hair envy is. Because he fed us that dog wallop around his cycle last week, which none of us were interested in.
Yeah.
Only to point out the fact that he can't grow hair. So, I mean, if you want to come up north, bud, and borrow some hair, I've got it everywhere. It's an amazing, it defies gravity. It defies any product. It is just happening. So if you want to be here, come to Queensland.
I'm waiting, Blewy, for the DOS to start getting that stuff surgically taken out of there and planted out the back here. I want to see that.
I've always thought how cruel it is for the really hairy blokes like Haydos. They've got it everywhere. It gets hairy and hairy all over their body. But where you need it most, that's where it drops out. It's bloody cruel.
Merv Hughes, another example.
Yeah.
He's turned into a Yeti with nothing on the top. Now, we need to discuss cricket, of course. The Aussies are playing in two different parts of the world. Let's start with the boys. In New Zealand, a T20 over there, and Mitch Marsh, Blewy, getting the job done nicely with the bat, has turned into a fine captain batsman.
Yeah, that was an absolute thrashing, actually. Getting the runs with 3.5 overs to go. So that's a great little start. Always, it's a very quick trip for the boys. So it's obviously the build-up to the World Cup that's happening at the start of next year. But a win's a win. And, they're experimenting still a little bit, the Aussies. I like the fact that Tim David's getting a chance a little bit higher up in the order as well. So he's batting at number 4, number 5. So sort of expanding his game a little bit as well. But, Mitch Marsh is in great touch. So there's definitely, with a look forward to conditions in Asia, we'll definitely see those two up front with Mitchell Marsh and Travis Head, who played well. Again, he got off to a brisk start. So that 181 was never going to be enough. And Zampa and Hazelwood, Zampa wasn't amongst the wickets, but really put pressure on the New Zealanders. Both of those guys, Hazelwood and Zampa, basically went for a run of ball. So that's brilliant in T20 cricket. So great start for the boys.
Where are they playing? Where is Mount Maunganui?
Yeah, I don't know.
They're playing all 3 games, which is probably a good thing. I just wanted to reflect on their strike rates. Australia have now got their pattern. They might change their personnel, but they've got their pattern. They're just going for it. You've got Mitch, just striking under 200. You've got Hetty, 170 plus, just taking on the game. Matty Short, 160. And then you've got Tim David, who's just beasting it everywhere. So they've got their method. I guess where they'll find it is tricky is when it doesn't have the perfect start. So how are they going to, be comfortable enough posting, like a 160 score and then having to defend it? That's where every side in T20 cricket has got to now, because there's so much risk if you're striking at anywhere above 140, if you miss a ball, you're under immense pressure. So they seem to be handling that really good, which is a good sign.
All right. Well, before we get on to the girls who made a ripping start to their attempt to win an 8th, by the way, one-day International World Cup, which is completely ridiculous. I had a good chat, Bluey and Doss, with the great friend of all of ours, Tim Nielsen, who is up looking after the Australian under-19s against India. And he, speaking about beast mode, Doss, he said these Indian kids are just next level. He said that they bring a game to this level that it's like not quite boys against men, but it's got a bit of that feel about it. And if you look at the numbers out of that, people can say Australian under-19s, not who cares, but they have blasted 428 in a minute against our blokes who made 243 and are now 1 for 8.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a worry or what it is, but he said these blokes are ready and stacked, these Indian kids, including the one that made 100 in the IPL age 14.
Yeah, look, they are unbelievable in their own conditions, JB. When you go to any Medan around any of the cities where they're getting highly coached by these really significant academy structures, which are very basic academy systems. But what they do have is, like we discussed this briefly in our show, I think it was last week, about the demise of our own academy. Us all being coached by, Bacchus Marsh or whomever was at the academy at the time. And there's something really significant, I believe, in that relationship between getting coached by players that actually know the game, that read the conditions, that know the game. And like I said, if you go to a Medan, which is just like a big open courtyard, like a park, where there's just exclusively cricket getting played on hundreds of different wickets, these kids, technically, you go in there and they're just flawless. You'll see some of these viral videos of 2- and 3-year-old kids smashing balls, in their tiny little rooftop balconies with great technique, getting coached by more than likely first-class cricketers because there's so much cricket. Their challenge is always going to be, as I guess ours is going to that place as well, is how they're going to play in overseas conditions, because we know they don't like to share their assets too much.
Yeah.
Ravichandran Ashwin, big news for the Big Bash League, is the first Indian player that I know that's actually coming out, beyond his playing career and playing in our tournament. We learn a lot from going to England and vice versa.
Well, we're going to get to him because he might be a part of a segment later on. But this is Ian Healy Oval. Now, I understand the conditions there, Bluey, are pretty flat. But from the intel that I have, these Indian kids, they're 18 and below, a lot of them have got their bat still on the ground when the ball's released. They're side on. Their setup at the crease is really traditional. Their shot selection, they're playing proper cricket shots in 50-over cricket. This is now a longer form game. I love watching them when they come in. We talked about Shubman Gill and how technically correct he was. What I don't understand when you flip over to a lot of the Australian kids you see is who the hell is teaching them to stand like that, to hold their bat high up above their head, to do all of this funky stuff they're doing as young players. Where are they learning that that's the right way to stand to receive certainly a red ball?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that's an important point, whether you're talking playing longer form cricket or white ball cricket or T20 cricket, because, we see someone like a Jake Fraser McGurk who's basically got the bat up like a baseballer. Matty Short's doing it as well, and definitely it's got some benefits, no doubt about that. But I'm a huge believer in being able to pick your hands up. Now, you can start with your bat off the ground if you want. Haydos, you did that, but you had it sort of around about knee level, and then you picked your hands up. I'm not a huge believer in having your hands up and then delivering it straight into the ball, because you lose some of that sort of natural hand-eye coordination. So, I mean, we can talk about this stuff for ages, but we have touched on, technique in this this pod before, and I'm a big believer that the Indians do it best whether it's, from a defensive point of view or an attacking point of view. And these young Indian players coming out, JB, are technically correct, but they're just playing a little bit more aggressively as well. Yep. And in our conditions, we're getting a hammering. So there's no doubt we're getting a snapshot of what cricket's going to look like in 4 or 5 years' time. And that's what we've all thought as well, is that India, I mean, they're already here in white ball cricket, but, with their depth, it's going to be really challenging for other sides.
I'll tell you what it does do, but it puts a huge microscope on the levels of coaching then in that case, because what's happened is that everyone comes to Australia to get their levels, yet we seem to be falling behind technically on so many different aspects of our game. If we're getting hammered at home by a younger team, that just really puts alarm bells through us to get back to the basics of how it is that you need to approach cricket.
So, this is a rabbit hole we could dive into for hours because everyone's got their own thoughts on it. But, Bluey, what I always liken it to is if you, and you haven't needed to do this as much as me, but if you go to a golf professional and say, right, I need a lesson, the first things they look at is your grip on the golf club and your setup. Because they always say, the ones I've spoken to, I always say, if you don't get that bit right, you're making an extraordinarily difficult game impossible. So make sure you hold the club properly and make sure that your stance, and the way that you address the ball is proper. Otherwise, the rest is going to fall away really quickly. And that's pretty much universal to every golf pro I've ever spoken to about the technique in that game. So why is it in cricket we pay scant regard to how you hang on to the bat and how you stand at the crease? For me, they're the two most basic things you need to get right before the rest. You two are extraordinarily talented hitters of a cricket ball, but you both had very simple stance and grip techniques that allowed you to flourish as players. Why in 2025 with our kids don't we start teaching them that basic thing first, and then let's work on the rest of your game from there?
Well, I mean, I've got 2 young boys. I think it's my youngest one's got his hands a long way apart. Now, we've seen that be successful with, other players. I'm thinking like Faf du Plessis got his, hands on the other. Yeah, and you've got Stephen Smith, who's got one of the weirdest grips you've ever seen. Yep. Like his bottom hand is way behind. So there are different ways of going about it, but you're right. Like basically, you've got to get your fundamentals right. And we've also touched on it before in previous weeks that I just think Australian players now have got so front on with their chest and their hips.
Yeah.
And that is exposing both sides of the bat. So, yep, I mean, all coaches are going to go about it differently, but if I'm coaching technique, which I am at the moment to my 9 and 10-year-olds, I'm thinking more like a Virat Kohli than I am a lot of the Australian players. That's just the way it is.
JB, just going back to golf, I've had one professional golf lesson, and it was out at the Royal Queensland Golf Club. I thought, how good's this? I had all the flash attire on, a lovely set of clubs. I was so happy, new glove, thinking this is going to be gold. He took one look at me and he said this: why are you using Justin Langer's golf clubs? They're the wrong size. I was ducked over. I was shanking everything. So I thought, so proud of my Callaway's, and just, it turns out it cost me about $5,000.
I love it. Well, speaking about technique, Ash Gardner, Beth Mooney, if you watch our girls bat for 5 minutes, geez, they get it right. Ash Gardner, superb with 100 in the opening match of that World Cup over there. Just pure striking. I only saw the highlights, but some magnificent flushing shots over the top of mid-off for 6 and 4. So well done to her and well done to the girls. Talking to Beth Mooney before this tournament started, India, England and South Africa, our main concerns. But again, Dos, off to a flying start.
Yeah, got it right, got their preparation right. Spent some time over acclimatising there, which is always good, and got off to fly. New Zealand put a strong, when you look back at the way that they went about it, Sophie Devine striking a good 100. The one thing that I wanted to talk about there was just the conditions, just to remind our audience just where they're playing. So they're playing in Madhya Pradesh. That was indoor. which is
Where's that,
kind of
Big
like,
Dot?
it's actually right in the heart of India, JB.
Right.
It's right in the guts. It's quite a big state. It's very hot still, even though it's getting, into the back half of the year, and quite humid as well. You see a lot of these games now, and probably over time, this will be a pattern through this World Cup. Rain interruptions are going to be big, so net run rates and big wins are going to play their role in this tournament. And then the turnaround for our girls, right? So they played yesterday, and then they're also got to, in a couple of days' time, go over and play in Colombo. So, I mean, India's a big country, and still Colombo's quite a long way away, and it's very hot. The south of India still is just piping hot. There's only hot and hotter in that particular part of the world. So they've got a lot of things to go through as a group. But the one thing they do really well, like all the great eras of cricket, doesn't matter if it's West Indies, Australia or whatnot, is that they seem to have a very good camaraderie and they stick together nicely. They got good combinations. They punch on together. Alyssa Healy's obviously doing a good job as skipper. They just got it. They're singing. They're singing again, the girls. It's great to see.
Yeah. Also, they got gears. When they get caught in games, they've just got this incredible ability to lift the gears. All right, we got to get your top four in a second. So a couple of topics we're going to work through. Nathan McSweeney, Blewy, a couple of 50s for Australia A. So he's putting his name back up there. Pat Cummins during this week declaring Cam Green a number 3, which would mean that Bo Webster potentially locks in number 6. So is it only an opener we're looking for that first test in Perth?
Well, I'm not sure whether he declared him a certain starter at number 3. I mean, he said there's still some discussions going to go on with obviously the coach, Andrew McDonald, about how they're going to go about it. I still believe these first 4 Shield games will shape who bats at number 3 also, as well as one of the openers. So we know that Usman will start. All eyes are on Usman as well in those opening Shield games to see how he's going, because, you take out his double 100, which you can't take out, I know, but outside of his double 100 in Sri Lanka, Usman's, really battled as well the last little bit. So, look, if Cam Green is our number 3, I agree with Pat Cummins. I think he's just got to suck it up with his bowling for the series. If he's required, Jarks Cullis did it for ages as well, batting at 3 and 4 for South Africa. Nathan McSweeney making runs in India. Runs are runs. We've spoken about that in the past as well. For me, it's just a great sign going to Asia for these guys as well, knowing that they can play in those conditions. But again, I'm all in on the start of this season in Shield cricket, which starts on Saturday in Australia. So those four rounds will be unbelievable. So South Australia at Adelaide Oval, and the other teams are off and running as well. So very similar to the start of last season, DOS, where it was an absolute bat-off, and a lot of the openers fell away. I'm talking about Harris and Bancroft. So good to see who's going to make runs under pressure.
I like Bluey JB a lot more when he's just on the front foot, so, a couple of podcasts ago, he was like, they're definitely going to pick the same side. He's got his side. Now he's singing from the song book that I was on, which was the first 4 games, and no one's really safe. Blue, you got a rebuttal to that?
No, I've been saying the same thing. The first 4 games, it's a bat-off. It is an out-and-out bat-off.
You just said a couple of episodes ago that you reckon it's null and void. They've got their team. And there's a lot of our colleagues, I've got to say, Ricky Ponting as well during the weeks, like, lock them in. I don't think it's really going to matter. And to me, I just want to see these first 4 games, blokes under pressure, having to really knock their way into the side. What is wrong with that thinking? That served the generations which we are about to talk about in our Ashes 11. That served us in great stead. Performances under pressure, lots of people getting runs, new bowling opportunities coming up, maybe potentially with Pat being out as well. There's nothing wrong with performance pressure and nothing wrong with a first-class system that allows players to have to perform, not just a nice to do.
I don't know what Haydos was listening to in the other episodes, but I never said that, Haydos. I'm pretty much what you're saying. I also I don't want the selectors to be at the end of these 3 or 4 games like everyone else in Australia, just looking at who scored the most amount of runs. It's like, runs in different sort of circumstances in the first innings as an opener, whether you go out, there might be a difficult 10 overs to face on a particular night. So I want the selectors, which I'm sure they'll do, look at the appropriate vision and not just look at how many runs someone's made, because that's what the media will be doing. Will be going, oh, well, Nathan McSweeney made 100 in this Shield game, but it might be on a complete flat track under no pressure. So they need to deep dive into these performances coming up.
I like the front foot Blewy too, Dos. That was early in the career where he would just take this massive step forward, and then if they tried to sniff him, it'd go from there.
Yeah, it was the best version
I was at the non-strikers end going, how do you actually do that? Most blokes, if they're going there, are back and making sure. He'd just take it off that conch. Now, Ollie Pope, let me talk to you about him. Suddenly under pressure from the UK press, and we know that over there they can feast on their own, which I absolutely love. I think they've got their best chance in a long time for an Ashes series out here, but they're already starting to just nibble away at their own people. Ollie Pope replaced as vice-captain for the upcoming tour by Harry Brook, Jacob Bethel emerging, Dos. What are we seeing here? Some early nibbling.
Yeah, I got to say, this issue didn't really worry me as I was in 56 meters of water and catching snapper most of the week. But what I do say is a bit like bait fishing. It's always decent to put a bit of burley in the water. So this podcast should certainly promote anything to do with kind of the kamikaze press that we've seen ahead of whatever happens on that flight, which I've mentioned before. I think what happens is when they get to about 35,000 feet, in the 20 hours that it takes to get here, the gas masks come down and they start sucking on something which seems to create a different version of the England that we see at home. So bring it on, I say. Press, eat them alive. But I will say they are looking solid. Might be this change and that change. We heard Graham Swan talking about it on our potty, saying that kind of their assets kind of counterbalance our assets, and it's going to be a hell of a series. In my book, that was spot on. Nothing's going to change. We have got questions of our own to answer, and we have been putting burley in the water, in and around our first-class structures, our selection policies, the way that we go about preparation and our coaching strategies. Like, these are all big questions for us, let alone what England have.
Blewy, for me, Robert Key, who runs cricket over there, had to lasso the press and just go, they are the ones with all of the uncertainty. We don't have any. Here's our team for the first test. We're not changing it. We're locked in. Let them feast on themselves. But already they're talking about the number 3, who's a pretty decent cricketer, Ollie Pope, being under pressure.
Yeah, it was it was either Michael Vaughan or it might have been Michael Vaughan saying, I wouldn't be surprised if Jacob Bethel walks out in the first test match at number 3. I mean, geez, they're all in on him. Dos is 21 years of age. He hasn't scored a first-class 100 yet. He's played 20 first-class games and averages 27, and they want him to walk out in that first test match. Look, I reckon if they did make a change, JB, I think Ollie Pope's a better player than Zach Crawley. So I could see him opening the batting instead of Crawley. But I'd be surprised if they don't start with a pretty settled top 6 to start the series anyway.
All right, I can hold you two back no longer, and I am fascinated at this.
Have to put the specs on for this one,
this
JB.
Is the Dos and Blewy, their all-time Australian team. We picked the England team, you guys did, and there was massive controversy around that. Comments underneath the millions of people listening, my goodness, they just feasted on that team. But this one, this is the Australian top 4. So what are we starting from, 93 onwards?
Right. 93 onwards.
All right, who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Righto, Blewy.
Chance to redeem yourself, Blewy.
I clearly won the opening debate with the English team. That was the proof was in the pudding there. Right. Anyone who knew anything about cricket knew that I clearly won that one. Yes. Now, unlike unlike Haydos, I've put some work into this.
You're actually on
and
the
I'm-
money, yeah?
And I'm really interested to see if Haydos
Doss
picks
is at the
himself.
beach house. We're not
Yeah.
sure what he's been. He's been
no,
picking snapper out of the ocean.
There's been limited effort apart from what breads and fish that I've been making. Yeah, I might
While
be
he
half
was
decent
pulling
next
that
week.
snapper in, he's thinking, "Hey, what did I average again
Yeah.
over in the UK?" Hey, right.
All right, come on.
I did JB and
Yes.
Haydos and our audience. I battled the most with my top three. The
Right.
middle order sort of, I think, pretty much picks itself, but the top three is going to be very interesting. I'm going to start with a man that we know very well and we work with a lot. Little feisty left-hander is number one for me, and that is Justin Langer.
Yes.
The JL's in my top Ashes team
Very
since
hard to
1993.
leave out.
21 matches, 1,558 runs at 50, 5 Ashes hundreds, 5 50s, and more importantly, as the England's team was as well, I've got a big weighting on runs scored away from home. So runs scored in England. And little Alfie, the little garden gnome, averaged 55 in Ashes cricket in the UK. So I'm starting with that little feisty left-hander.
Well, I couldn't agree with you anymore. He brought his best to Ashes Test cricket, and when you're wearing youth pads and using a Harrow cricket bat and still averaging over 50, that
and
is
youth gloves.
extraordinary performance. So good start, Bluey, Doss.
Yeah, he looks like he's dug himself a hole at the striker's end there, and he's just disappeared halfway down it, doesn't he? Vertically challenged. So Alfie's definitely in my list as well for all those stats that Bluey's just so diligently researched. Above the stats, though, what I see is a man of character, because those numbers that he had in England, they were often under duress as well, because he was no certainty to get picked. In fact, the first time that we opened together in 2001, he, came in under controversy. He'd worked really hard, as everyone does in that era, through the first class games and the setups games that we played, and he just grabbed his opportunity. Quite a difficult occasion, actually, because Stephen Waugh said to us in the team huddle that, unfortunately, Michael Slater, you are now no longer playing. A guy that had played, 74 games and 20 test matches against England. So really challenging conditions, and a bit torn for me because, as you know, there've been a bromance pretty much since I laid eyes on JL, even though I thought he was a drinks waiter at the time. He's just got great character. He has got all the champion qualities, incredibly hard worker, super disciplined, a really good team player, worked at every aspect of his game. Like even to the end of his career, he was still in there catching balls, working out where his best position was. He got smoked in at bat pad, so he had great courage under fire. That's why I love batting with him so much, I reckon, because he'd have that stupid grin on his face. The faster and harder it got, the more that grin had come out. And there was a solid sense that he was a partner that was in it no matter what, for better, for worse. When you walk down the aisle, that's kind of where you're at. And he was married to the game of cricket for all the right reasons. And, yeah, he's a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, and he got hit on the head a lot, Bluey, but I said that's not necessarily his fault because they were half volleys that were conking him. That was the problem.
I'd only ever met Kerry Packer once. and Kerry Packer, we went round to his house, and he was really calm, actually. I was quite surprised, JB and Blue. I was expecting the gruff man, the really forceful man. He was going through his whole life story, which you can buy the book and basically read it. But he was talking about the role of luck in his life and how his old man had kind of bought the printing press and so it went. And then he turned on JL. He looked at him gun barrel straight in the eyes and he said, "And son, you should know all about effing luck." It's like, whoa. He says, "Lucky they effing invented helmets, or you'd be effing dead. I was like, okay, here we go. The real Gary Packer is lob, and we are now in the thick of the action. Of course, we all piled into him because he does get hit on the head a lot. And he said, hey, took the words out of our mouth. Why do you get hit on the head so much? Which
I rang him
no
after he got conked Blewy in a test match somewhere. I can't remember when it was. And obviously he's a great mate of all three of ours. So I'd finished playing by then. I'm commentating. He got hit in the head and carted off. And I rang him, and this sort of wobbly voice came over the phone. And I think he was expecting some sort of sympathy and some care and concern. And I said to him, Lick, as you know, that's what I call. I said, Lick, any danger of using the wooden thing in your fucking hands? Like, if you use that, the ball can't actually end up hitting you in the head. What about that for an idea? But no, very worthy. I'm glad you both put him in. What a superstar opener. All right, Blewy.
Right, okay. Well, I'm glad I'm not on Stradbroke Island right now and sitting next to the big DOS because I might get a clip around the ear.
I can't believe what I'm about to hear.
No Hayden. And the other two I wrestled with is Michael Slater. Actually, very similar Ashes records, you two. Slater, 20 tests, Haydos, 20 tests, both averaged 45 in Ashes cricket, which is brilliant.
I'm about to say, which there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah. Slater, 700s, Haydos, 5. Haydos in England, 34.
Shocking.
And Slats, I think, around about the same. But let me get this out. That like both very good players. They were very close. I had a little look at big ass Tubby Taylor as well. Average 42 in Ashes cricket. But I've decided to go with a couple of reasons. One, because of his cricket, and also for drinking 52 cans on the way to England. Babsy Boone.
What?
David Boone is my other Ashes opener.
How much opening did he do, Babs?
Lots. Now, listen, 31 Ashes test matches, 2,237 runs at 45, 700s in England, 16 test matches at 49 as well. So the Baboon is my other opener.
I would have said a lot of time at number 3 for Babs, and therefore it surprises me.
He opened a lot.
I'm very glad you put Michael Slater in that conversation, by the way, because he was outstanding. Not only his numbers, but the way he went about it. That dash off the top, which set up so many games for Australia. He really was before his time in a lot of ways. So I'm glad that he was thrown in there. But Babs, for me, is... That's a rock in the pond, Big Doss.
Well, as always with Blue, I don't know. He must be growing some mushrooms down there because he's had at 3, because I just got up the numbers here, and at 3 he batted 111 times, and he averaged 45. Opening 63 innings. 800s, so his record as an opener was exceptional. But I'm just, I mean, it's very hard.
So just leave it at that.
Well, it's hard because what we're really doing here is we're straddling what I feel was the most dominant era of cricket, and that was under the Steve Waugh regime. I think that period that you had AB who set it up really nicely, took us back from the fire. He was like a phoenix as a captain, and then it transitioned into Tubby Taylor, who built out, this exceptional team that Steve then inherited, and him and his brother included, and then it went on to break, world records. And
so what are you saying?
Well, what I'm saying is I can't work out where Babsy was sitting in that hole as an opener. Like, it just doesn't really resonate with me. And
right. So where are you going?
So he just didn't. He opened the batting, DOS. I mean, what don't you get about that? He opened a lot. You had
Yeah,
Vaughan.
well,
You had Vaughan at number.
no,
Where'd you have
I went
Vaughan
out of
last week?
position. No, I'm not
Yep.
disagreeing with you. It's your side. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I think he's
Well,
a
get
great
on with
player.
yours. Hurry up.
I was making the point around the transition,
Right.
but I find it really hard to go to because I had three names on my paper. I had Tubbs, Slats, and Davey Warner. They were the three names that I had, all openers. And so I find it really hard to go past Slats. And now the reason why I do that is because I think Tubbs was a player that was also a fine captain. So he defined that era, as I said, as a captain and as a batter as well. But there's no doubt in my mind that Slats was a more impactful player. So when I think back to the very first time, and him and I were in direct competition, as you boys know, in '93, and he won that spot, and he won it because he was a much better cricketer than me, not only at that time, but I also felt even in England, he just was able to ride that luck between and keep that aggression. And in the face of adversity, that 100 that he got at Lord's was one of the best hundreds I've ever seen in my life, even though I was running the drinks. So he was a force, a formidable force that kind of planted the seed also, Bluey, for guys like you and me and Herbie Elliott and then Davey Warner, who really kind of like took all of that, bundled it all up and kind of made that spot something very unique with a strike rate of 70, whereas Slats was sort of in his day ahead of his time because he was sort of sitting in that 50-odd strike rate. Tubbs was quite a conservative batter, but an extremely successful player in England, something which I have, and I'm glad that you didn't pick me because I have regrets over my English Test career. I didn't get the combination of aggression right, versus what I was very good at doing. That was defending. Tubby nailed the defense. Slats got it all right. And Warner got it all wrong, when it came to the English conditions. He was just a bunny for guys like Stewie Broad. So Slats is my man, in short. And I feel like, him just to do his numbers, 20 matches, average 45, high score of 193, almost 1,700 runs at a strike rate of 56, and ahead of his time.
Impossible to argue with any of that, except for we're ignoring a man that opened the batting for Australia and averaged 50. Just because he's in the room and because you're a mischievous bastard, Bluey, you did it on purpose. So, all right, we move from that to number 3. Blue Boy.
Okay, so, there was only really one that I had to go with because punter is in every side as your number 3. So I'd be very surprised if Haydos doesn't have him at number 3 as well, and that's Ricky Ponting, of course, who played 35 Ashes Test matches, just under 2,500 runs at 44, 800s in Ashes cricket. And in England, 20 test matches at 42 with 400s. So 4 Ashes hundreds away. And we all know, the other qualities that punter brings to each side along with his very hairy forearms.
Yeah, I don't have any argument. I don't have any argument, and I'd be surprised. This could be a very limp segment this week, because I feel like we've had our controversy. We've had our sort of opening battle, but I reckon 3, 4, 5. I'll be interested. Maybe Bluey will shock me. He has done before because generally he's clueless, but I'll be surprised if 3, 4, 5. Come under kind of scrutiny. But, punter, for all the same reasons that I was talking about with Alfie, he was probably the bloke that I enjoy batting with the most in terms of just a pure cricket comradeship. It was just so built heavily on aggression, competitiveness, just an incredible appetite for runs, and an ability to be able to bat a very long time in spite of the hair on his forearms, which created a lot of wind resistance when it came to running between the wickets. I feel like he is number 1 seed at number 3 in any side, maybe ever, by the way.
I, Bluey, am surprised at those numbers you read out because I, unlike you, hadn't done my homework. Those numbers against England, both in Australia and in England, are well underneath his career numbers.
That's what I was wrestling with, because if you look at, and that's why David Boone, I mean, just on figures alone, you'd probably have Booney at number 3. But I just couldn't leave punter out.
No, I'm not suggesting you ever would have. I mean, he's just a lock. No. But I was surprised at those numbers.
The numbers, the numbers aren't as high as his usual numbers. You're right, in Ashes cricket.
Could you say that you just shave off 5 or 6 of your 1, 2, 3 in a country like England? Like we've just picked our England 11, but those numbers.
I'm losing you there, Big Doss.
A compelling case when it looked at the Australian 11 in terms of just sheer numbers, because of that fact that opening the batting in England is just tough, and batting 3 is the same.
All right, what about your 4?
Yeah, well, I'll start again, and it's Stephen Smith. I mean, there just couldn't be anyone else, unless the Big Doss is going to come up with something. He might have Tugger at number 4, maybe, but I think Tugger, basically batted most of his career at number 5. So my number 4 is Stephen Smith, and it is, until you start deep diving into these numbers, like he's one of our absolute greats, Stephen Smith. If he retired right now, he goes down as one of our greats. 37 Ashes Test matches, just under 3,500 runs at 56, with 12 Ashes hundreds, 13 50s. And in England, he's now played 23 Test matches at 54 with 800s away from home. Just extraordinary numbers.
That series when he got pinned by Jofra Archer, I've not seen a more command performance, Doss, in a Test series by a batsman than that. He just took the piss. It was ridiculous.
He's just generationally great. Strategically, almost perfect. Technically, extremely difficult to analyse, because I just don't feel like there's too many other players that, and I wonder also the impact. And when we talk about the impact of generationally great players like a Shane Warne, for example, how many leg spinners have we come and seen because of Shane Warne in our system? Like they virtually have disappeared. And yet there's not too many players, including our modern players, that don't want to emulate what Steve Smith does from a technical point of view and can't. So I also feel, no judgment against Smudgy, but I also feel like his positive momentum in the game is creating an interesting dynamic to the other batting and batsmanship. He's kind of redefined what it looks like, and I don't like what it looks like.
Yeah.
But the numbers, the pursuit of excellence, the way that he's always able to kind of like stay ahead of the game often, it's phenomenal. The only admirable mention that I have, and it'd be negligible for us not to mention this, is Mark Waugh. Junior was a special, gifted player. He wasn't of an era that necessarily cared a lot about the numbers. He was a very selfless player. He was built purely for entertainment. The big Rolls Royce, you put him on the hoist and out he'd go again. And, he averaged less than Smudge. He caught like silk. He was probably a better catch than Smudge, although Smudge has got a great set of hands as well. Got a very good record against England, 29 games, average 50, good strike rate, pure entertainment, all class. So difficult. Very difficult to leave. And Huss was another one that I had on the list as well.
Yep.
Michael Hussey. Sure, he had one eyebrow raised blue when you looked at his. Great record as well.
He batted higher, though, didn't he? Like he batted
as in lower. He batted 5
and 6. Yep.
He batted 5 more than he batted 4.
Yep.
But at 4, and even, sorry, that's not right. Just against England, because he batted 4 and 5. 15 matches, 400s, 1,300 runs, averaging 59. So we've got, it's a big queue, actually, at number 4.
Yeah.
Big queue.
Well, the other one, Haydos, is Michael Clark as well, who
was a
very good player, obviously, for Australia. But his Ashes record isn't, quite the same as some of the other players we're mentioning there.
Not surprising. 4 was the hardest, or the logjam, because that's where 3 and 4 is where your best player bats. And it's impossible to argue with Steve Smith. But just back to Mark Waugh, Dos, as you know, I was in England 2001 to cover that series that you guys played so brilliantly in. I reckon he made 200s in that series, one at Lords and one at the Oval.
Was it?
Well, at least 2. And the 100 at Lords, I've never seen batting made look easier, Bluey. It was one of those ones where you sat in the stand, even as a former player yourself, not at that level, but you don't tend to glorify things as much as punters in the stands. You tend to watch and just sort of think, right, well, he seems to be going all right. But I remember Mark Waugh getting out at Lords and thinking it was a privilege to have been there to watch it.
Yeah, don't tell him, though, that it looked easy, because he hates that. He hates the fact that, Steve Waugh was seen as the real battler, the tough guy. And I remember Junior saying lots of times, mate, I'm trying just as hard as him. Don't worry about that. But it's just the way the different styles come across at times. And
was it him that got out reverse sweeping the toughers? Your pick for the England 11?
Mark Waugh is not completely out of it for me. So just stay tuned.
Good. I like hearing that. Right, and just to finish on Smudge, the other thing with that, Dos, is like you talk about the runs he makes against all opposition. People often talk about the great Greg Chappell, who I'm old enough to have watched play live. The thing I always say to people about him is he averaged just under 54 in Test cricket and walked into the West Indies for 6 straight years with Roberts, Marshall, Holding, Croft, Gardner. I mean, you've got to consider that when you're judging players. So people go, yeah, he didn't go to the subcontinent. Australia didn't go there very often back in his day. But they were the best attack, many believe, ever played Test cricket. And he copped them for 6 straight years and still averaged 54. So with Smudge, I so agree with that. You cannot put those numbers up and not be considered in the all-time greats of the game. Simple as that. All right, I like this. So 5, 6, 7 next week. And I expect some bombs to be dropped here.
Yeah, we're going to have some differences by the sound of it, Blue.
Stay tuned.
We move on to the final over. I love that. I want to be able to do this every week, by the way, just for the sort of feistiness of it. All right. Final over. So quick answers. How can the new stadium in Tasmania house red ball international cricket with a permanent roof? Maybe white ball, but can you play Test cricket over 5 days under a fixed roof?
Well, what's stopping you doing that? I mean, you take conditions out. Huh? But you're talking about a total
conditions are a
roof,
massive part of Test cricket, surely. The overcast conditions, the covers coming on and off, all the things that make Test cricket so fascinating. You've got a permanent fixed roof.
You guys have played a lot of time in Tasmania. Largely, there's huge interruptions of play because of the unstable weather. I think there should be a move across the world to have a lot more covered venues. I think it's an innovative move that hopefully can trend, because largely the interruptions in play, they kill our game in many ways. I mean, not too many other games, that are as big as ours, are not housed under conditions, that have closed roofs. So I say, why not? If it's affordable, which I would argue it isn't the case, I assume AFL will save its neck.
Yeah, they've demanded that they have a closed roof stadium. Otherwise, the team down there aren't going to get a license. So I think they are going to get a closed roof stadium. I just wonder, Bluey, with red ball, I'm talking, with 5-day Test cricket, I got no issue with T20 and ODIs being played under a roof. That's absolutely fine. I just think the conditions element has to come into a Test match. Or does it? I'm happy to be proven wrong.
I agree. Like, straight away, I'm thinking, it just be sanitised Test match cricket, really. I mean, the conditions aren't really changing. So in an ideal world, Haydos, you'd probably have a retractable roof, wouldn't you? You know,
Yeah,
you'd have
absolutely,
the
yeah.
option to be able to close up like Wimbledon do. But even watching Wimbledon, like when they close the roof, the echo, and it's just a completely different game. The game, I think, slows down from memory. Yeah, I didn't realise it was a permanent roof, JB, down in Tassie.
Well, that's
I
what they're
thought it
talking
was
about.
the
Because the
retractable one.
retractable costs a fortune, apparently. So
They've spoken about that at the MCG as well, and put a $6 billion tag on it. If they're going to put a roof over the MCG, $6 billion I reckon they've.
I think they threw that number at it to make sure that the conversation ended.
Doesn't happen. Yeah,
exactly. All right. First 2 days of the Perth Test, Big Doss, sold out. 60,000 strong stadium. I get the feeling that the West Test, as they call it now, has made a real comeback, which is brilliant.
Yeah, hard to argue, other than I don't like it as the first Test match. I feel like that's sort of lending a bit more of a hand to an opposition, anti-touring side, actually. But maybe I've got my very maroon cap on as well. I don't know. But it's great news that it's got the interest. It's a wonderful stadium. Hard to ever go past the old days of the Wacker where it's zipping around your ears, but I think we've acclimatized to the Wacker Stadium now. It's a beautiful venue. It's a well-supported, well-connected venue as well. It's just, we stay very close by to it, and, to walk into the venue as we do often as broadcasters, it's a special feeling. So, yeah, that's very, very exciting news, JB.
Yeah, great news. Wonder how many of those are Poms, because
big English population over there.
I reckon.
Yep.
Lot of English that live in Perth, and we know that their supporters travel as well. So, which means it'll be a great atmosphere. There's no doubt about that. So, and I think a lot of the venues, JB, what's that, Haydos?
We should take a punt on it. We should take a punt on, like, we're going to be there, all things being equal. Be interesting, that number. We'll get those stats.
Yeah.
How many English fans, how many locals are there? That'll be a good number to put up in our potty at some point.
I just love, Blewy, the government over there have got behind it. They've thrown money at it. They've set up this brand that is the West Test. Everyone was starting to wonder if Test cricket was still going to go to Perth because it had become a bit lethargic, I reckon. And over the last 3 or 4 years, they've really invested heavily in the brand of it, and the state's got behind it. I love what they've done.
And Cricket Australia have obviously are right behind that as well, because, as Haydos has said, they've taken the first Test match off of Brisbane. I still love the theatre and the history of the first Test match at the Gabba as well. That's just what I grew up with, so I'm a bit that way as well. But I suppose if you're ever going to sell your first 2 days out, why wouldn't it be an Ashes series where the Poms think they're a decent chart? So we're all starting to get really excited for the summer ahead.
Ravi Ashwin, $1 million to play in the BBL. Now, this could be paper talk or just
that can't
whispers.
Be right.
But, Doss, is this a good decision?
I hope it's a decision which, for the long term of the Big Bash League, it encourages the product to venture into the biggest cricketing market in the world, and that's India. Do India need us? Hell no. Do we need India? Hell yes. Like every other supporting franchise tournament across the world has investment and coming from the subcontinent, and I feel like it's maybe a bit of an icebreaker. And I think it's also, have a world-class player like Ravichandran Ashwin is with a big name. Hopefully, our news can get behind that. Hopefully, as a decent tournament, albeit in the twilight of his career. I played a lot with Ravichandran Ashwin at Chennai. I know he's a bit like some of the greats that we've mentioned on this show already. He's a wonderful learner of the game. He's also now taken it on board to be a great coach of the game as well. So anyone that sort of sits in and around him will benefit from just sitting with him and asking a lot of questions. And he's a great giver for the game as well. So yeah, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I can't believe it'd be somewhere near $1 million, because he's not even here for the whole tournament. I think he's just here for the back half at best, and if they make the finals. So, but yeah, absolute no-brainer, and I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I mean, we're starting to get, I think, our summer schedule a lot better, where we're sort of opening up the Australian players to play a lot more of the Big Bash towards the end of the summer. And the only missing ingredient really to that was the quality Indian players. And he's only just retired, so there's no doubt he'll offer a lot. The Thunder have said that they're going to build their team around spin and their home conditions, so he'll be a bit of a handful, no doubt about that. But I think it's a brilliant move, but I'll be very surprised if it's near $1 million. Surely not.
All right, final question in the final over. Bluey, rugby league's worst result. A Brisbane team playing a Melbourne team in the grand final in Sydney and the Storm win. That's old Pete Volandi's worst possible nightmare. He's waking up in the middle of the night going. Well done to the Broncos, by the way, who have come from bloody nowhere. So great result for them. And well, from a Melbourne Storm man, Bluey, well done to the Broncos for getting rid of the Panthers, because every time the Storm meet the Panthers in a final, they bloody lose. So you've opened up a nice pathway for us, Big Doss.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all those backhanded compliments. That was lovely. You didn't even recognise us last week. Oh, no worries. Yeah. Oh, look, I think it's the rugby league competition. There's no doubt that rugby league mounts a compelling case. Maybe nowhere near the league of AFL, but for the common man, blue collar game, I was just an example. Like, there's this tiny little tavern that sits at Amity Point here on North Stradbroke Island, up in Queensland here, and the whole joint last week was absolutely humming for both grand finals. But there's a special feel around rugby league up here in Queensland, and I've got to say, Melbourne has been an unbelievable feeder club from Queensland to Melbourne and vice versa.
We've handed you some talent over the journey.
Well, we've handed you talent, and then you've handed it back. Thank you very much, because we all know, and this is the only thing that we've got in common with the Vics, we all hate New South Wales. So it's always been a fantastic outcome when you hand back your legends like Cam Smith,
yes,
who's my favourite footy player of all time. And then we hammer New South Wales in the state of origin again, and it's all good. But going to be a great final. JB, you did an unbelievable job, by the way, mate, of the call. It was a very entertaining AFL grand final. We love listening to you, but we just love the event, the build-up.
Yeah.
Is just sensational to that. It's across every news channel. It's across everyone's television screens across Australia. There's no doubt that it's a premium event. So well done on that. But
the Broncos,
I just can't wait for this final.
If they win, Bluey, that's a Lions-Broncos dual result, which would be amazing. Congratulations to Craig Bellamy, by the way, who has the Storm in his 11th grand final. I mean, it's just, I don't think a coaching performance like his will ever happen again in any sport in this country. It's quite ridiculous. Just to finish, Bluey, you came down to the AFL grand final, did a speech for the MCC members, was it? Where did you speak?
Yeah, spoke the Thursday night before the grand final. So I think there was about 250 in the room. There's a little club that's a part of the MCC called the 29 Club. Now, that was formed in the mid-1900s, and it's basically built around social cricket. There was a lot of striped blazers in the room. I was meant to talk for 25, 30 minutes. I sort of got to the stage where I was thinking, well, it might be about 40 minutes here, and I saw a couple of yawns in the crowd, so I had to wind it up pretty quickly, JB. But it was a great couple of days, in Melbourne, and actually emceed by Chuck Berry as well. So there's another blast from the past. So a couple of drive-bys for Chuck that I had planned as well, which I had to get off my chest.
It would have hurt them.
That's right. But JB, can you imagine a year where the Lions win, the Broncos win, and Queensland win the Sheffield Shield?
No.
God help us.
That's the tail wagging the dog. That's what that is.
Look at Big Doss.
You blokes are all living. No, I'm just thinking of just the numbers that are just getting, straddling New South Wales and then straddling the Queensland. Where do you holiday, JB? He's always up here. At some point in time, you kind of think that you get with the force. And if it takes
Keep
trophy
drinking our wine, Doss.
I love your wine. Yes, there's no doubt about that.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Great chatting to the two of you. Well done with your start of the Australian teams. I love that. This has been All Over Bar the Cricket. Make sure you access it wherever you listen to good podcasts. And, of course, you can see it live on YouTube as well. Well, when I say live, you can see the video as well as hear the audio. We'll see you next week.